Hello everyone. I welcome you all on behalf of the TheDaak Baithak for our 30th meeting, the Baithak. The TheDaak began in 2023 as a book review journal publishing original reviews across disciplines and genres. From the start, we ought to reimagine the form of the book review itself, encouraging writing that moves beyond summary to engage deeply, reflectively, and more creatively with the world a book opens up. Over time, we grew into a biannual academic journal that now includes reviews, explainers, commentaries, and research essays. Each issue is built around a central theme, bringing together diverse voices that explore the intersections across social sciences. The TheDaak Baithak is a humble attempt to huddle around a small gathering of scholars, writers, and students from different fields to present ideas and initiate dialogues, bringing critical conversations to life. Today's discussion is titled Continuity or Change Intergenerational Patrilocal Residence Patterns Among Indians in India and Abroad, USA, UK, and Canada. The discussion draws from a research paper which examines patrilocality among Indian women in India, first generation Indian immigrant women, and second generation Indian women in Canada, the US, and the UK, analyzing the impact of age, education, and employment on post marital co residence patterns. Patrilocality is associated with women's dependence and subordination in societies where it is prevalent. The research investigates the incidence of patrilocality in the parent population and in three major destination countries for Indian immigrants where it is uncommon, exploring the implications for gender dynamics. The research presents a comparative descriptive analysis and examines the relationship between post marital co residence patterns and demographic variables of age, educational attainment, and employment status using binary logistic regression. The sample includes Indian women in India, first generation Indian immigrant women, and second generation Indian women in Canada and US and the UK. Across all groups, women are more likely to live with their husband's parents rather than their own. Patrilocality decreases with age, varies with education across countries and generations, and is consistently lower among employed women. The findings highlight the persistence of patrilocal traditions in both India and the Indian diaspora, emphasizing the need to understand cultural norms, socio-economic factors, and policy implications to advance gender equity. Today, we are pleased to welcome Dr. Parminder Kaur as a guest speaker. Dr. Kaur is a researcher and educator dedicated to advancing gender equality and social equity. She is a professor at Tecnológico de Monterrey, where her research focuses on demography, family formation, gender inequality, midlife vulnerability, pay negotiation dynamics, gendered cultural practices and their impacts, as well as immigration and integration processes. She holds a PhD in demography from the Autonomous University of Barcelona, where she combined data science and social research to examine economic disparities, migration patterns, and the social consequences of demographic change. At the university, she teaches and mentors students in intercultural leadership and data science, training students to engage with complex social challenges through data informed and intercultural approaches. We are also delighted to have Dr. Neha Tiwari as a discussant today. Dr. Tiwari is an assistant professor at Gurugram University. Her specialization is in governance and public policy with a focus on gender, labor, and the role of the state. Her doctoral thesis is titled Reproductive Agency and Commercial Surrogacy in Gujarat, which explores the complex dynamics of women's reproductive labor. We welcome you both, and I would request Dr. Parminder Kaur to share her PPT and begin with her presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. Very nice of you. And before I begin, I would like to sincerely thank the TheDaak Baithak for this invitation, for this opportunity. And it's a pleasure to be a part of this forum that values careful listening and critical reflection. So please give me a minute to share my PowerPoint.
Sure.
Okay, can you see it?
I can see, yeah, I can see it now.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay,
but it's not
perfect.
in the
So shall I
slideshow
begin?
format.
Pardon? Sorry?
Yeah, it's visible now.
Okay, it's perfect. All right. So again, thank you very much for the introduction, and you have mentioned the title as well, so I should not, spend time on that thing. And, this is the topic that I'm going to talk about. So, and you have mentioned that I have this paper of continuity and change patrilocal residence has been published in the Journal of Family Research already in 2024. So, I'm going to present now what is patrilocality, why it matters, and why we should focus on that topic, and what are the implications, and then what I have studied, how I have studied, and what I have found out, and what are the implications and conclusions of my research. So before I begin, I would like to draw your attention on this important thing, a lived reality. After marriage, most women, most Indian women do not choose where they live. Marriage for women is also migration. It is shaped by social norms, and very often it is not negotiated as it is expected. And that expectation is deeply gendered, deeply rooted in social norms and expectations. So, before I begin, I would like to talk what is patrilocality. So, patrilocality refers to a post marital residence pattern in which women leave their parental home and move into their husband's parental household. So, this is the standard definition used across a long tradition of research in demography, in sociology, and gender studies. So, patrilocal residence is a part of kinship system in South Asia that also prioritizes sons. When lineage, residence, and old age security depend on sons, daughters' mobility, on the other hand, after marriage becomes structurally constrained. So, the presentation that I'm giving today is about post-marital residence patterns, but also about power. How power is organized within families, how it travels across borders, how it persists across generations. So, I want to emphasize one thing clearly at the outset. Patrilocality is not just culture, it's infrastructure of patriarchy. It shapes women's daily lives, their access to support, their autonomy, their bargaining power within marriage. So that's the important thing that we have to take into consideration. And now, why it matters, why the study of patrilocality matters a lot, I have mentioned already, and I will continue with a few more words. A large body of previous research shows that women living in patrilocal households are more likely to face restrictions in mobility and decision making, greater dependence on marital families, and heightened vulnerability within the household. Living with the husband's family often means that women must adapt to new authority structures while simultaneously losing access to their own social and emotional support networks. This shift, moving from the parental house and going to marital household, husband's marital household, this shift reshapes power relations in subtle but deeply consequential ways. So, having said that, what is patrilocality? Why patrilocality matters? I would like to go to the imperial reality that the I have already mentioned why patrilocality matters. The previous research have shown that. But now I'm going to give some evidences that why what is the empirical reality, what the previous literature has found out. So when we look at the empirical evidence from India, the patterns we see are consistent with structural understanding. For example, research from different regions in India shows that nearly 1 in 3 married women report some form of domestic abuse, with higher prevalence in rural areas and in more traditional family structures. More importantly, Violence and control are not limited to spouses. Extended family members, particularly mother in laws, are often involved, highlighting how joint family systems can intensify women's vulnerability. So, this clearly shows how residence, kinship, and gendered power intersect in very real and sometimes tragic ways. So, these findings make it clear that patrilocality is not an abstract concept. It has concrete consequences for women's safety and autonomy. So, that's why the study of patrilocality matters a lot. So, now I have given what is patrilocality, why it matters, what is the empirical reality. Now I'm going to talk about the assumption that we all carry. So there's a widespread belief that education plus urbanization plus migration will automatically weaken traditional family practices such as patrilocality. The idea is that once women become educated, move to cities, or migrate abroad, older norms will fade. Family relations will become more egalitarian. But existing research suggests that change is neither automatic nor uniform. Some practices adapt rather than disappear, and others persist in new forms. This raises an important question. Does mobility, whether social or geographical, actually dismantle gendered family structures, or does it simply relocate them? So this is the important question, and I'm going to focus on this question in this presentation in my research. So let's talk about the geographic mobility, which is migration. Migration as disruption. Is it really or is it not? So, migration introduces a potential disruption to traditional residence patterns. When families move from one place to another, in this case, I'm talking about moving from India to host countries, especially across national borders. They encounter new housing systems, labor market, legal constraints that can make extended family co-residence more difficult. At the same time, migration exposes individual to new social norms around marriage, family, and gender relations. Because of this migration, migration is often assumed to weaken patrilocal residents. So that is the assumption that we all carry, that if we migrate, the patrilocal residents, this phenomena can be weakened. However, evidence suggests that disruption is partial. So co-residence often persists, particularly along patriarchal lines, even in contexts where patrilocality is not the dominant norm. So I'm talking about geographical mobility, where women, leave their countries and they go to host countries where patrilocality is not the dominant form, but still that disruption is partial. In other words, migration changes context, but it does not automatically dismantle the underlying gendered structures. Having said that, now I'm going to move to the missing piece in the literature. So I have already spoken about patrilocality, why it matters, empirical reality, and then the geographical mobility, that's migration, and migration does not dismantle these gendered structures. So what we don't know so far, does patrilocality weaken across generations? Do daughters of migrants live differently than the immigrant women themselves, or do traditions travel intact or not? So this is what the missing piece in the literature that I'm going to find out in my study. So now you may ask that why I have chosen India and its diaspora, Indian diaspora, because we are 1.4 billion population. We have around 20 million Indians living outside of India. And I'm going to target the host countries like USA, UK, and Canada, English speaking countries, where, these are the favorite destinations of Indian people. So, and study this phenomena in these countries was really significant, because you can find, in my paper, I have cited that how many Indians are living in these countries. So, significant migration to countries where patrilocality is not the dominant norm. So, if we talk about India, we have the patrilocality so deeply rooted that nobody even questions. People just accept this is how it is. So, and they are moving to countries where this is not the dominant norm. And then what happens? Do they continue or do they change? So, uh, in my research, like you have mentioned already, that I'm studying Indian women in India and Indian women in these countries, the first generation Indian women and the second generation Indian women as well. So I'm not going to repeat all that. So in my study, the dependent variable is patrilocal residence. So what I have done, I have constructed, using the IPOONS international data and UK LFS data. I have constructed a variable where you can see the household structures, where you can see the how many members are in the house, etc., etc. So much work I had to do to construct the patrilocal variable. That was my dependent variable, if women are living with their husband's family or they're living with their own families. So, and then the independent variables were age, education, and employment. So this was a cross-national intergenerational comparison. So before proceed further, I would like to highlight that this is not just a comparison of countries. It's a comparison of systems. So as I mentioned before, the patrilocal, this norm is not dominant in host countries, but it is dominant in the parental country. So, so these are the research questions that I was focusing in my study, that how prevalent is patrilocality in India and in diaspora? Does it change across generation? How do age, education, and employment matter? So these are just simple questions, but with very uncomfortable answers. So let's see what I have find out. So this is the descriptive table that you can see on your screen. This table shows, as you can see here, these are, Indian women in India. And this blue, dark blue, shows patrilocal residence. And the light blue one is matrilocality. Matrilocality is the opposite of patrilocality, where women are living with their parents, not with their husband's parents. So as we can see from the data that I have used, IPOONS international data, the census data. So we have almost 29% women are living in patrilocal residence in India, and only 1.65, if you round it, 1.7 only are living in matrilocal residence. And if I talk about Canada, as you can see here, these are the first generation Canadian women, and these are the second generation Canadian women. In first generation, you see 21.5% women are living in patrilocality. On the other hand, 2.81 in matrilocality. And the same thing is observed in second generation. So, if you, the intuition, what it says, like, no, this norm could be changed, but no, it's not changed. As you can see, all across the second generations in USA, second generation in UK. So how this norm, this, you know, this structure is continuous. So this is just the descriptive data that I'm showing you. So all across, it's clearly visible. First generation women or second generation women, we have more patrilocal norms among Indian women who, who have geographical mobility, who move from their home country to host country. And in UK, the most surprising thing is, like, if you observe the first generation, less patrilocality, but in second generation, high patrilocality. But these can be like structural constraint as well. Like maybe the families, it's not easy to travel to UK for parents. Women, they could go to UK, but maybe their in-laws, husband and wife can go, and maybe their in-laws don't get visa to go to UK. So maybe this is a reflection of that thing. But in the second generation, this barrier does not exist. So that's why we have more, patrilocality in second generation women in UK. So now I will move to my logistic regression analysis, where in the paper you could see that I have presented the associations. So here, what I have found, well, this is the same thing that I have shown you in the graph, that across all contexts, women are more likely to live with their husband's parents than their own parents. So we could easily say that patrilocal residence is more prevalent in India. Among immigrants, patrilocality declines but does not disappear. Well, patrilocality declines compared to the Indian population in India. So that's what I meant here. Differences emerge across countries and generation. So now I will move to logistic regression. So I did not want to bore you all, so that's why I haven't pasted the figures, in the presentation. So I have just put some wordings so that it's more user friendly and people can understand better. So what we have observed, first generation immigrant movement women often retain patrilocal residence patterns, that what we have observed from the data. Second generation women show lower levels of patrilocality, but persistent. But persistence remains. Structural constraint and cultural transmission operate simultaneously. So, what we can say here, like migration weakens, but does not dismantle patrilocal norm. Traditional residence patterns adapt rather than disappear. Change is uneven across social position, generation, and context. Patrilocality remains a resilient family institution. So, patrilocality as a gendered structure. Like I have mentioned previously, that if you look at the empirical data, previous research, they have shown it like that. And now my data is showing that it is persistent. So it's a gendered structure that is persistent. So patrilocal residence reinforces women dependence within marriage. Declining co-residence does not necessarily imply declining patrilocality. Education alone is insufficient to challenge residential inequality. Economic independence play a more decisive role. So now I would like to take a pause and explain you in more detail the results of my logistic regression. So what I have found, that with age, I have age groups from 25 to 49 years of age, and I have divided them in a group of 5 years. So as you can see, as you are getting more old, patrilocality is declining everywhere in India or abroad. Everywhere patrilocality is declining, but this can have multiple explanations. So maybe when you are getting old, when people are already near 50, so maybe their parents are no more, etc., etc. So there can be multiple explanations about that. So if I talk about education, the coefficients, they are showing that even if you are more educated, medium educated or high educated, you're more likely to live in patrilocal residence. So that clearly shows education alone is insufficient, does not challenge residential inequality. So doesn't matter if you are educated, high educated, medium educated, or low educated. All the women in all the categories are living more likely to live in patrilocal residence. What happens when those women who are educated and they are economically independent? So then what happens? Then you can see significantly this norm is declining. The association, the likelihood, the tendency of living in patrilocal residence when women are economically independent is declining. So that clearly shows education alone is insufficient. So what is sufficient is economic independence. When we combine education plus economic independence, then we can decline this gendered structure patrilocality. Then it clearly shows that as women, as they are more economically independent, they are less likely to live in patrilocal residence. So economic independence plays a crucial role, plays a significant role in women's gaining autonomy, gaining more authority, choosing for themselves than education alone. So, having said that, I would like to, tell the conclusions of my paper, which I am already stating from time to time. So, patrilocal residence continues to shape women's life in India and diaspora. Migration creates opportunities for change, but also reproduces inequalities. Because why I said that? Because when people migrate, it depends. How are you migrating? That you are migrating with your employment, or you're migrating just as dependent on somebody else. And that also matters a lot. So if you are, you have got a job in a company, etc., and from the day one you are earning your own money. But if you are going to be somebody's dependent in host country where you don't know the language, where you don't know the societal rules of that country, how that country operates, the new things, etc. So you have to learn a lot. And that dependence, this is what I have not found that, but the previous literature has found that when that happens, women suffer. Immigrant women suffer more domestic abuse, more domestic violence because of their dependence. So this thing reproduces a lot of inequalities. So intergenerational shifts reveal both adaptation and persistence. So what happens? As you have seen, the second generation Indian immigrants, they are more likely to live in patrilocal residence. But if you're comparing them, except UK, if you're comparing them, with the first generation immigrant, though they have less numbers, but still it's persistent. So they are adapting, maybe they are adapting to the local systems, but still not at that level. That thing is still persistent because it's deeply, deeply, deeply ingrained. And that has, and nobody has ever questioned that why do we live in patrilocality. So the most important finding is employment emerges as a critical factor in challenging patrilocal norms. So the question, where women live after marriage, tell us how power travels across generation. It's very important where you live, where you live, because if you are living in a patrilocal residence, there's a shift of power. you have there are already authority structures in that household where women have to adapt themselves according to the structures of her husband's family. And a little deviation can result in conflicts, and sometimes those conflicts can exaggerate a lot and result in harmful practices. And many times women don't have their social and economic support, because the social norm, the conditioning people carry, that after marriage woman belongs to her marital family and her natal support should be declined. So that these kind of things are still deeply ingrained in our psychology, which we have to unlearn and challenge. So, final takeaways: patriarchality is not only cultural, it is structural. Migration alters geography faster than it alters gender norms. Education matters, but employment matters more. Post-marital residence is a key site of gender inequality. So, with this, I am done with my presentation. And thank you very much for your attention, for joining the session and listening. And I'm really sorry if it was really boring. So, I would like to invite the discussant for her questions as well. And the audience, if they have any questions, it will be my honor to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kaur. I would invite Dr. Tiwari to share her views and insights and questions. Yeah.
First of all, thanks, Dr. Kaur, for this wonderful talk you delivered and on a very relevant and interesting topic. And I'm sure with what all is going on across the world, you will see some major shifts in the pattern in your area of study. So, first of all, I will start with my comments, and then there will be questions within the comments. Okay, and then I will end with my suggestions. So first of all, your sample size is very good. That was very important. And but here again, one suggestion that I think collecting empirical data would enrich your study. Like when you talk to women directly, I have done it in my study, so I'm suggesting you this. You will have some amazing findings. You know the kind of things they can tell you. Maybe that will help you to kind of challenge or question the the existing scholarship on this issue. Now, next is idea of empowerment. You didn't mention this term in your presentation, but it is there in your paper. You rather choose to use the term power. So I will say this for both the terms. There's huge literature on this, on these terms, empowerment, power. So let's talk about empowerment because somewhere the entire work is also about empowerment, empowered women, right? So there's a lot of literature, like Naila Kabir is there, Nivedita Menon is there. For your work, Amartya Sen's work is very relevant, very relevant. So I think if you discuss these ideas, their ideas, it will enrich your work and it will, I think help you in framing better questions and you will, um, I think it will enrich your work. You will see once you go through their work. Now, I have a question here, and that is after this study, how do you define empowerment in this context, women's empowerment I'm talking about? Because, yeah, should I repeat my question?
No, no, no. Perfect. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
okay.
So thank you very much, Neha, for your suggestions about doing qualitative analysis and start and interviewing women and see their perspective. So that
Yeah.
definitely, first I wanted to see the structures, the patterns, so that the pattern you can see with the census data, with the big
Hmm.
data, and to
Yes.
see what happens. And then definitely, because my training is completely quantitative, numbers,
Hmm.
data analysis, data science, etc., etc. But now I'm going to start some qualitative studies as well, where I can interview women and I can see their perspectives as well. So yes, that's already in my agenda, and thank you very much for this suggestion. And like you have mentioned that empowerment, I did not mention in my presentation today, but yes, I have written in my paper. So definitely there's a lot of literature mentioning that. So that was just in the discussion section where I have mentioned, women empowerment and how women can be empowered by gaining economic independence. Because if you are economically independent, then of course you have your own choices and exit option. In case your support network fails, your marital family fails, the it does not work out, so you have the exit options. Only if you are economically independent. If you're not economically independent, you are bound. And of course this thing, and for sure, so when I will do the qualitative data, and of course I will use the empowerment literature as you have mentioned. And like you have, the question was, how do I define women empowerment? So, having, as I said before, the empowerment is questioning everything. Education alone, that is what my study is also saying. Education alone does not do anything if we are not economically independent. And sometimes, now this is not my study, this is what I have read in others work in existing literature, that now the phenomena, what is happening is like women, they are economically independent, but they don't have the knowledge how to how to do their finances, because nobody has taught them. They have not seen their mothers, they have not seen their mother-in-laws, they have not seen in the society that they can take care of the finances. So they earn money and they give them to their husbands. As a result, even if you're economically independent, you're not independent. That's a fake independence, because you're not controlling your own finances. You're not doing, okay, this mutual fund, that mutual fund, I can spend my money there, I can take into consideration what do I do. And women are not taking important decisions of their life because nobody has taught them. They have always, the cultural framework always put like, no, she belongs to her marital family, and the natal support has been taken away after women is getting married, so she doesn't have social support, she doesn't have economic support from her parents. So whatever she's earning, she's already giving the power to her husband. So all these things are interrelated, what we have learned. So if we are able to unlearn these things, definitely women will increase their empowerment. And one more thing I would like to highlight here, that the cultural stigma that says, oh, they and also the legal system is referring to that. Recently, there was a case, I don't know, somewhere in South India. A woman wants to live in a neo locality, and the lawyer, the judges, they said that no, based on her whimsical decisions, whimsical thoughts, she does not want to work, and so she does not want to be taking care of her in-laws. So that judgment, what does it say? That okay, so this is the legal system, that women have to take care of her husband's parents. So why do we have these kind of structural norms in our brain? So it's not bad to take care of old people. So that's what we have deeply ingrained with. We have to take care of our old generation. But when this expectation arrives, she has to take care because she's the bahu, she's the daughter-in-law. Then when she does not meet that expectation, then conflict happens. So we have to remove this stigma from the society. If women wants to live in a neo locality, and she wants to work outside of the house, she wants to take control of her life, she wants to take control of her choices. Until or unless women don't do that, they won't be empowered. Even though they are educated, they are working, they won't be empowered at all. And I think empowerment starts first by unlearning the things and by fighting your own nerves. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. And now, my next question is that there is this finding in your paper that in the US and UK, the proportion of first generation Indian women residing in petro locality is relatively low. It increases for the second generation immigrants and reaches levels comparable to those observed in second generation women of Indian origin in Canada. Now, this is very interesting. Can you please elaborate on this, like discuss this finding?
Okay. So, could you please repeat what you
I'm
said?
okay. I will. I will. In the US and UK, I'm just reading out from your paper.
Okay.
In the US and UK, the proportion of first generation Indian women
Uh-huh.
residing in petro locality is
Uh-huh.
relatively low.
Yeah.
It increases for second generation immigrants
Okay.
and
Okay.
reaches levels comparable to those observed in second generation women of Indian origin in Canada.
In Canada. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So, definitely, thank you very much for bringing it out, Neha. So, what I during the presentation, like I said, that in USA, well, I mentioned more about UK. I did not mention about USA. So, what we have observed, what I have observed in the data, that first generation Indian women, immigrant women, they are compared to second generation, they are less likely to live in co-residence in petri locality. Why that so? Because like I have mentioned, because the visa constraints. So it's not very easy. Like if we are born and brought up in India, and then with marriage, or when we are grown ups, we are moving to a new host country, for instance, in this case, USA and UK, and we have our in-laws there with us. So it is possible, it happens, but maybe not 100%. As a result, we see the first generation Indian immigrants, they are little bit low in terms of percentage in petri locality than the second generation, because in second generation, visa constraints, all those things does not happen, because you have already families there, and that
Mhm.
shows this continuation of this gendered practice. So one thing. And um, and then I say that the second generation is more or less like like Canada. Why in Canada we see women are more likely to live of the first generation women are in more in petri locality, because nowadays it's difficult, but it was not before. Going to Canada was relatively easier. So if you are educated and if you have points, etc., and you can easily get PR while you are in India, and you can move to Canada with your parent, then you can sponsor your parents, etc., and all that. So previously, it was not very difficult for Canada to have Indian immigrants, first generational immigrants. So that's why I said that the first generational Indian immigrant women in Canada more likely to live in petri locality, and it persists in second generation as well. So then all the second generations you can compare. USA, UK, and Canada, they are all in living in petri locality.
I think it says a lot about their employment status as well, because
Right,
as you mentioned,
perfect.
yeah.
Yes. So employment status is what that I have referred, is like if they are economically independent, they are less likely to live in petri locality. So
Mm-hmm.
education alone does not stand. So if
Mm-hmm.
women are economically independent, they are exiting from petri locality. Maybe they have the power, empowerment to stay alone. Maybe they see the host country's dynamics, and they want to achieve their independence as well, because in there's always a shift in power. If you are living in petri locality, you don't have the same power as you have in your natal house. So to achieve that power, they when they are employed, they're exiting that petri locality option.
So based on your finding, I'm assuming that second generation immigrants, women are not doing so well, I guess. I think.
Yes, but if they are employed, They are
Hmm.
not in patrilocality. If they are only educated, they are in patrilocality.
Hmm.
If they are employed, if you see the association, the coefficients in employment, then they are exiting the patrilocality.
Okay, thank you for the answer. And now I will move on to the suggestions. First of all, I think a robust theoretical framework will definitely enrich your work. That is one. And then, if possible, include various dimensions of the population, like urban-rural divide. You discussed India's situation also, so you can take that into account as well. And then, when you
Mhm.
mention employment, it is a very big term which hides many things. So you can also look at the nature of employment, the kind of money they are making. That also has a lot of impact on the decision. So that will enrich your analysis, I guess. And then it is just a suggestion. If possible, you can look into what is happening in Africa as well, because in passing you have mentioned Africa towards the end of the paper, and there is a totally different operational structure there. So you will, I think, it will really enrich your study if you look into that. And I came across this data that 12.37% of all Indians who have migrated outside live in Africa. So you can look into countries like South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania. This will give you some interesting perspective. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, definitely. That's a great suggestion because this paper has been published, and then, of course,
Hmm.
there can be continuation of
Yes,
other
yes,
works,
yes.
collaborations, other works, other data sets, which, I can take into consideration. And of course, the nature of employment that also matters a lot.
Hmm.
Which kind of employment are you doing? Are you a manager? Are you a, professor? Are you a researcher? Are you a, just I don't know. So there are
Yeah.
multiple things that can taken into consideration, and rural and urban, that also matters a lot because the previous research has find out that in specifically in rural areas there's more the
Hmm.
association of patrilocality and domestic
Yes, yes.
abuse.
You
So
mentioned, you
yes,
talked
that
about Haryana. Yes, yes, in your
yeah.
paper.
So yeah, definitely. And then, adding these countries like you have mentioned, Africa,
That's
Israel,
just
blah,
a
blah, blah.
suggestion. Yeah,
So yeah, 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 definitely. That can be the future study. So future research. Okay.
it's wonderful.
All
Sakshi?
right.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you
so
very much,
much.
Neha, for your
Thank you.
questions.
If anyone else would like to ask, can unmute yourself or write your question in the chat box. Yeah, Jigyasa, they would come in. Yeah.
Thank you, Sakshi. Dr. Kaur, thank you so much for this very interesting presentation. I mean, I'd like to call myself somebody who works on, not the qualitative, but the quantitative side of arguments. So for me, this rich data was very exciting. And I think it also helps some of us on the other side to kind of also, if not, take a deep dive, at least think superficially about numbers which tell a story. So thank you for that. Um, I don't work in this area, so please treat my question as a question from a novice to this field. I had the opportunity of reviewing Professor Supriya Singh's work on violence of money, and this is a sociological take on money, where her argument is, and she's also looking at exactly the same fields that you're looking at. Her sample set is 50, and her argument is that money is actually a very important sociological indicator for women who are married or who have migrated to places like US, UK, and Canada um, after marriage. So migration related to marriage is pivoted around money as a very important indicator for her work. And she argues that everything else is secondary to the fact that if the woman in question has sources of either income, or if she has control over money, there seems to be a relationship for her work in empowerment. And I was wondering, through your presentation in the paper, that are you also trying to make that kind of inference that employment leads to a certain kind of control over money? Because what she does, interestingly, and hers is a case study where she talks to her interlocutors who speak about being employed but still not having access to their money because, in some way or the other, either the family or the husband takes control of money that they earn, which is where I think the suggestion from the discussant, Dr. Tiwari, comes in, where if we were to kind of bifurcate the variables, we may find that some women, despite their employable status, may not have the power to choose what they do with what they're earning. And I was wondering if you found that kind of correlation in your field. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jigyasa, for your inputs. They are really valuable, and I'm really happy that you enjoyed the presentation. And like you have mentioned, your colleague who is working on violence of money and money's important sociological indicator among migrant women or women in India. So that's I think it's a very important thing we have to discuss here. So my study have found out that if women are employed, if women have employment, they are less likely to live in patrilocal residence. And we have already established that living in patrilocal residence means that you are bound to face some gendered structures, some identity issues, etc., etc. So they are correlating with domestic abuse and dowry related, that's all those things. So what I have found is employment is the key to exit this norm. So then in the discussion I have correlated employment with control of money. So like if you have your own money, if you are independent monetarily, then you have the power to exit a relationship which is not fruitful for you. So I have not find out exactly the women that I have studied in the data that they have control of money or not, but this is the inference, this is the theory that I have developed after studying everything. So that's what being a population scientist, being a social scientist, that's what we all do. We study the data and then we interpret it in our way and build theories out of it. So that is my thesis, that is the thing that I have taken out from my paper, that employment is the key and taking control of your money is the key as well. So yes, that's a very important and significant area that your colleague and you are working on that thing. And I think and this thing after studying these things, like Neha has mentioned, we should interview women as well to see their perspectives. In addition to that, I would say that we should have more workshops, we should have more empowerment sessions for women to this inbuilt thing that we have in our mind, that this is how it is. Or if you look at the media, if you look at the movies, serials, all those things, they are constantly representing the same thing. So and we can only educate by reaching to common population, go to rural areas, give talks, etc., and empower women like that. So because this academic work which we do, it's very limited. It's just those who are in academia, they just read that work and they may be already much empowered than the common population. So I don't know. So this is how we can spread the word and spread the awareness. So thank you very much, Jigyas. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
So we also have another question in the chat. So Shama
Mhm.
Rai is asking, Dr. Kaur, do you foresee a shift from patrilocal to new local but kin connected family models among Indians globally?
Okay. Local to new local, but kin connected family models among Indian globally. So I have not studied the neolocality. So definitely that was the case. Like, what I have taken into consideration, are they living in petri locality or they are living in metri locality? And those who are not living in petri locality and metri locality, the rest of the cases are living in neo locality. So that was the implicit thing, but I have not mentioned it. Kin connected family models among Indians globally. So yeah, so neolocality, I have not specified in the paper as such because that was counterintuitive that if either you're living in neolocality, metrilocality, and if you're not living in these two kind of set of structures, then you're living in neolocality. So yeah, so there are the focus of my paper is like a continuation and change, and I have come to a conclusion that there is a continuation, and there are neolocality families as well. Those families where their parents have not arrived from from the home country as well, and for sure there are so many neolocality households as well in host countries. But the focus of the paper is to find out matrilocality and patrilocality. And I hope, Shyama Rai, I have answered your question. You're welcome.
Okay, so I think since we do not have any other question, we can probably wind up. So, do you have a question, Dr. Tiwari? Do you want to say something? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful being here. Thank you for this opportunity. No more
Thank you
questions.
very much, Neha, and thank you very much being the discussant and for your critical reflections. I appreciate it as well, and thank you very much, Sakshi, for hosting it, for inviting me and giving this platform for me to speak. And if anybody has any question, I would be very happy to answer. I think no one.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Kaur, for being our guest speaker today. And thank you so much for Dr. Tiwari for being our discussant. And thanks everyone for joining us for the TheDaak Baithak. We'll see you again next Saturday. And yeah, have a nice weekend in evening. Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, in my case, it's just the morning. It's 8:33
Exactly.
in the morning, and your is evening. So yes, I have the whole weekend left. All right. Thank you very much. Nice connecting to you guys. Bye.
Thank you.